Good afternoon. I'm Teacher Anthony C. Literal, Teacher 3 from Francisco P. Tontino Integrated High School, District of Tagaytay. My topic for today is about research design and sampling. For today's objective, at the end of the session, the participants should be able to determine ways and how to write good research design. Number two, differentiate probability sampling to non-probability sampling. Okay, but before we move on, let's try to define first two important words that we will be encountering in this presentation. So we have the first one, research design. So what does it mean? Research design is the entire procedure of planning and carrying out a research study, as well as the description of the sources of data, the data gathering procedure to follow, the instruments to be used, and finally, the data processing techniques from according to Sanchez of 2002. So later of the presentation, explain pa rin natin to anong ibig sabihin nito research design na to. Alright? So the next one will be the sampling. So what does it mean? Sampling is a process used in a statistical analysis in which predetermined number of observations are taken from a larger population according to Villa 2020. So in this part, we will be justifying what kind of sampling technique we are going to use, how big is the sample size from a larger population. So these two words, research design and sampling, are the important terms that we will be encountering in this presentation. Next. All right, so ways on how to write your research design. Okay, so ano kaya itong mga to? It is divided into three. One is the research approach. Pangalawa is the research design itself. And then the last paragraph will be the special research design. So we have the first paragraph. In the first paragraph, it is stated here the research approaches. So we really have to answer this following these questions. Number one, in this study, is this study quantitative, qualitative, or mixed? So we really have to find out what kind of approach or research approach we are going to employ. Is it really quantitative? Is it really qualitative or mixed? After identifying the kind of approach that you are going to employ, definitely you really have to define that approach. And then at the end of the day, we really have to think of this question, is it really best for your study to use this kind of approach? So if you use the quantitative, you really have to cite, you really have to define it with citation. If it is qualitative, you really have to define it with citation as well as the mix. And then what type of data will you use? Will your study be getting? So how are you going to get your data? Right? The second paragraph includes the research design. So the question will be, what type of quantitative or qualitative design or mixed method design is this? Is this descriptive quantitative research design? Is it quantitative correlational design or vice versa? And then after identifying the type of your research design, you really have to define it. No? You really have to put the definition, likewise the citation. And then at the end of the day, let's try to realize, why do you think it is the best for your study? Now, what will be the implication kapag ginamit mo tong study na to? What is the implication kapag ginamit mo tong type of research design na to? Okay? In order for you to answer your research question. In your third paragraph are this one. Or in your third paragraph, special research design is one. In this third paragraph, it includes the following question. Is this an outcome-based study? Kung ito isang outcome-based study, what kind of research design ang pwede at tamang gamitin? If this is a survey study, what kind of research design ang dapat mong gamitin? And then at the end of the day, again, you really have to define the kind of research design you're going to employ. Likewise, kung ito ay quantitative, you really have to explain its philosophical underpinnings. And then, at the end of the day again, explain why do you think it is the best for your study. And then, you really have to come up, or you really have to answer this, you really have to answer your research question using these things. And then if it is an outcome based, what will be your outcome? What will be your output? So you really have to think it very critical, no? So pag pumipili tayo ng research design, hindi lang to basta gusto ko ng quantitative, gusto ko ng qualitative, gusto ko ng mix. Hindi. You really have to think it very wise. In order for you to answer your research question correctly, in order for you to come up with a very good study, right? So nandito lahat yan sa research design. Next, it's the population and sampling. Unit of analysis, it is the major entity that is being analyzed in a study. It is the what or who that is being studied. So unit of analysis is also known as participants, no? So itong participants na to, itong unit of analysis na to will identify anong class, ito ba ay individual, ito ba ay group, ito ba ay social organization, o ito ba ay social artifact, wherein itong mga to, itong unit of analysis na to, yung tutulong sa atin to answer your research questions. Alright, so ways in how to write your population sampling. In your first paragraph, definitely you really have to identify your participants. Who are the potential participants of the study? Maybe kung ito ay tungkol sa teaching and learning, definitely ito ay maaaring estudyante, maaaring ito ay teacher, maaaring ito ay school head, or whatever. No? So you really have to identify specifically sino yung iyong magiging participants. How many is the total population? How big is the population? Kung ito ay 1,000, you really have to get sample size. And later of the presentation, tuturuan ko kayo on how to get the sample size as easy as possible. And then lastly, justify the criteria. And the next paragraph is the sampling. Identify the sample size. This is the most important thing that we really have to consider. Identify the sample size. And present the computation on how it was derived, if any. So in this case, ang ginawa kasi dito manually. But later at the presentation, tuturuan ko kayo on how to get the sample size electronically. No? Gamit ang ating tinatawag na sample size calculator. Okay, number 2, identify your sampling technique. Anong klaseng sampling technique ang gagamitin natin? Ito ba ay simple random? Ito ba ay stratified? Ito ba ay universal? Ito ba ay purposive? No? Upon identifying the sampling technique, you really have to define what kind it is, and then justify why do you think it is necessary for you to include the sampling technique. Number 3, explain your plans for recruitment. How are you going to do this one? Okay, again, let's try to go back. In writing your population and sampling, you really have to consider your participants. And number 2, on the second paragraph, you really have to identify your sample size. Likewise, the sampling technique that you are going to employ in your study. Okay, so we have 2 kinds of sampling technique. We have the first one, the probability and the non-probability. And let's talk about first the probability sampling technique. Probability is any method of sampling that uses or utilizes some form of random selection. In order to have a random selection method, you must set up some process or procedure that assures that the different units in your population have equal probabilities of being chosen. So let's try to focus with this one. No? Let's try to focus with this one. Have an equal probabilities of being chosen. In this sampling technique, everyone has the right, or everyone has the chance to be chosen as part. Okay? So what are the examples of probability sampling technique? So we have the simple random sampling, or the fishbowl. You also have the stratified random sampling. You also have the cluster sampling. And lastly, the systematic sampling. I guess sa atin, since tayo naman ay matagal na pong nagre-research doon sa mga baguhang mga researchers. So I guess this four examples of probability sampling technique, this is not new. No, this is not new to us. So we can either of the four or either or pwede nyo silang gamitin when it comes to probability. Okay? Kasi nga, lahat ng to, lahat ng mga participants nila ay may chance to be chosen or to be part of your study. And the second one is the non-probability. Is a sampling technique where the odds of any number being selected for sample cannot be calculated, or it's really hard to get the final results, or you can it's really hard to get the final result of your study. It's the opposite of probability sampling where you can calculate the odds. Okay, it's non-probability sampling when you can calculate the odds at all. So hindi ganun ka-easy siya i-calculate. So what are the examples of non-probability sampling techniques? So we have the convenience sampling, the quota sampling, the purposive sampling, the snowball sampling referral, the theoretical sampling, and lastly, the universal sampling. Either, kung gagamitin nyo itong non-probability sampling technique, definitely either doon sa convenience hanggang universal sampling, pwede nyo siyang gamitin depending on the kind of research na gusto nyong gawin, and depending on a kind of way or pinaka-easiest way for you to utilize para doon sa inyong study. Gagamitin nyo para sa study nyo. Alright. So, here we go. Ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina na sample size calculator, no? So let's have a quick preview para hindi tayo mahirapan. In determining your sample size, we can use different online sampling calculator like we have the number one, the survey system, and then the RaySoft. Don't worry, ang dami-daming mga sample size calculator sa internet, no, na pwede niyong gamitin. But ako, I recommend these two, survey system and then RaySoft, kasi itong dalawang ito para sa akin pinaka-easy. No? These online calculators will help us to determine the sample size easily. Okay, quick glimpse. So, quick walkthrough using this online calculator. So, paano natin siya gagamitin? Number one, open your Google browser. Then look for the sample size calculator. Number two, in order to get the sample size using these calculators, you really have to predetermine your population size, or margin of error, likewise the level of confidence. Take note of the word predetermine. So, ibig sabihin, bago natin ito gamitin sample size calculator na to, alam na natin yung population size. Alam na natin yung margin of error. Likewise, kung anong klaseng level of confidence ang gagamitin niyo. Okay, para lagay na lang tayo ng lagay. And number three, after determining the population size, margin of error, and level of confidence, you can easily get the sample size by calculating it electronically. Now, papakita ko sa inyo ngayon, i-demo ko sa inyo kung paano siya ginagamit. Alright. Okay. So, naka-open na naman siya sa akin. Tulad ng sinabi ko, open nyo lang yung browser ninyo and then key in sample size calculator. Okay, so lalabas na itong dalawang to, si RaySoft and then si survey system. Okay, so gamitin muna natin itong si RaySoft. Sabi dito, ang margin of error habang siya ay tumataas yung percentage, habang tumataas ang kanyang percentage, lumiliit yung kanyang sample size. Right? Pero kung ang margin of error mo ay below 5%, definitely ang sample size mo ay tataas din. No? Low margin of error requires a larger sample size. Yun yung sinasabi natin dito. Okay? Now, what about this level of confidence? Meron tayong ang level of confidence natin ranges to 90%, 95%, and then 99%. According doon sa napanood kong video presentation din or sa video sa YouTube, itong level of confidence pwede siyang bumaba ng 80%, 85% to 90%. Pwede siyang bumaba depending on a kind of confidence na ginagamit ninyo. But in this case, naka-default na yung 90, yung 95% and 99%. And then, we really have to identify the population size. Okay, gaano kalaki yung population mo. And then, itong isa, yung response distribution, sabi dito, for each question, what 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 do you expect? No, what do you expect? Or what do you expect the results be? If the sample is skewed highly one way or the other, the population probably is 2. If you don't know, use 50%. So parang itong 50% na ito yung pinaka-default, no? Which gives the largest sample size. Ayun yun, no? Kung hindi natin alam kung gaano siya, kung hindi natin alam yung ating response distribution, gamitin na lang natin itong 50%. Right? So, as default muna. Right. So, in this case, meron akong sample dito na ang ginamit ko dito ay 10% margin of error. Okay. Pero meron ako dito population size na 1,000. Tingnan natin. Electronically, magko-compute siya. Okay. So, baguhin ko muna. Example, meron akong 1,000 na population. Tingnan nyo, nag-over siya ng 1,001. Tingnan natin, ilagay natin 5% margin of error. Ilan na magiging sample size? Automatically, magko-compute siya. So, 278. Kung ito ay 10% margin of error, ang magiging sample size mo is 88 in a population of 1,000. In a level of confidence of 95, tingnan natin dito sa baba. Kung ang magiging sample size natin ay 100, definitely ang magiging margin of error natin is 9.30%. Kung ang sample size natin ay 200, magiging margin of error natin is 6.20%. Kung ang sample size natin is 300, ang magiging margin of error natin is 4.74%. Anong ibig sabihin? Habang lumalaki ang margin of error, lumiliit ang sample size. Habang lumiliit ang margin of error, lumalaki din ang sample size. Tingnan natin itong sa kilid. So, naka-default na dito yung 90%, 95%, 99%. Since meron tayo dito, nilagay natin dito is 95%, nakuha natin na sample size is 88. Tingnan natin dito sa baba, 88. No? 88 na yung kanyang sample size. And then, nung nilagay niya, yung 90%, 64 lang yung kailang sample size. Yung 99 yung naging level of confidence, 143 yung kanyang sample size. Tingnan natin dito sa kabila. Okay? Sige, clear muna natin to. Okay, tingnan natin. Itong confidence interval, ito yung tinatawag din natin sa kabila. Dito kay Raysoft, tinatawag natin siya na margin of error. Itong confidence interval ay margin of error. Okay? So, tingnan natin. Kunyari, ang confidence level natin o confidence interval natin or margin of error is 5% at ang population natin is 1,000. Tingnan natin kung ano magiging sample size na. So, we have 278. Tingnan natin kay Raysoft kung tama. No? Tingnan natin. Ilan yung sample size? 278. Dito sa kabila, 278. Now, tingnan natin yung margin of error. Tingnan natin kung tama. No? So, kunyari, kunyari. Ito na talaga yun eh. So, lagay natin dito, 278. Check lang natin kung tama yung ating interval. Okay? Population is 1,000. And then, ang percentage natin ay yung default. Ito, yung 50% distribution. Okay, sabihin na natin 50%. Calculate natin. Parehas ba yung margin of error? Yes po, parehas po siya. Whether gamitin nyo po itong sample size calculator ni Raysoft and whether gamitin nyo po itong sample size ng survey system, either of the two, parehas lang po yung kanyang ibinibigay na result. Dito kay Raysoft kasi, hindi mo na kailangan pang ilagay yung data. Ang babaguhin mo lang dito ay yung population and then yung margin of error and then automatically i-compute na niya. Okay, ganito lang po kadali kay Raysoft. So paano natin siya i-interpret? o paano natin ilalagay yung, paano natin siya ilalagay into sa ating paper. Okay, ganito lang po siya. Okay. So since we have here 88, saan ba siya? Sige, sabihin natin na 278. Okay, yung sample size natin is 278. Naglagay na po ako dito kanina ng sample. Okay? So magiging 278. A total of 278 or 278 participants will be utilized to the study. Sample size was calculated using RASOF or survey ano isa or survey system. Either of the two pwedeng using RASOF or survey system. Sample size was calculated at anong confidence level nun? Confidence level niya is 95%. 95% confidence level or interval. So saan natin to kinuha? Ito yung formula niya kung paano natin nakuha yung 278. So saan natin siya kinuha? Kinapi-paste lang po natin siya dito sa baba, which is the formula in getting the sample size. Okay, and then copy-paste lang po yan. And then ito na po yan. Alright? So balik na po tayo dito sa slide. So ganun lang po ka-easy yung paggamit ng sample size calculator. No? So kung meron pa rin po kayong doubt using this one, you can also search your own sample size calculator, or you can have this sample demo para hindi na kayo mawala. This is actually the easiest way on how to get the sample size, no? Using the survey system and then the RASOF. Okay? So, and here are my references. I want to quote this one before I end this presentation. Sabi nga, itong omen na to, I consider this one as omen. If others can, why can't I? Ang laking naitulong po nito sa akin nung kumuha po ako ng licensure exam. Kasi palaging iniisip ko po sa sarili ko, kung yung iba nakakapasa sa exam, bakit ako hindi? So, likewise, kung yung iba kaya nilang gamitin, kaya nilang mag-isip ng research design na maganda para sa kanilang study, or kaya nilang mag-isip ng sampling technique na suited sa kanilang study, why not I? Bakit ako hindi ko kaya? Right? So in that case, we can definitely make our presentation better, if not best. So have a good day, everyone.